Lenin not only fulfills the demand of pulling out the war, but he's going to do so at an enormous cost to Russia. Because in signing this agreement with Austria and Germany, the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, he's actually signing away key industrial areas of Russia, and areas of keen natural resources. So the Russian economy is actually going to be pretty much worse off during the early years of Red Bolshevik control than it was under the Tsar. But he really attains the support of the people by his slogan of peace, land, and bread. He's appealing to the urban working classes for peace and land and letting up of this very stringent wartime economy, of land for the peasants who have seen, even though they've been free from serfdom, very rarely are actually able to have enough land to farm and provide for themselves. What we're going to be seeing in the next few chapters is what exactly happens when Russia must face what the realities are of communism: fixed wages, fixed production, and a way of life that allows for absolutely no objection and really none of the reforms that many of them wanted to see. But that key phrase of peace, land, bread, that's often what's drawing the population in terms of appealing to communism. The entrance of troops, the entrance of the United States into the war is also one of the key turning points. Now, these U.S. volunteers are just as fresh and green as the early European troops, but it does definitely provide the Allies a significant edge. Fresh troops with high morale, definite assurance of victories, fresh supplies. These are things that the Central Powers simply cannot access. They're not going to be able to do this. And so the Western Front is finally going to begin moving, forcing Austria and Germany to surrender. And so forcing Germany and Austria to surrender. Now, at the Paris Peace Conference, and what's eventually going to be producing the Treaty of Versailles, there's a lot, again, of friction, a lot of uncertainty that's going on at this particular time. So the royal families of Austria-Hungary and Germany were forced to abdicate, and provisional governments are also put in place in those areas too. So they're the ones who are going to be negotiating or actually signing the peace treaties. Austria Hungary and Germany are actually not allowed in the negotiations whatsoever. Now, the Allies themselves are not unified in terms of what they hope to accomplish. What we saw in the emergence of the United States on the international stage in terms of being now a true partner to Europe. And there's a lot of respect and admiration for President Wilson and his ideas, or the 14 points. But those 14 points, while they might be sound very idealistic, very admirable, they're not necessarily seen by all European nations as conducive to their own national interests. So it's very interesting that this war really begins with a lot of strain on national interests and international standings. And at the end of the war, the Europe has not broken this mindset. They're still very much centered on this particular way to go, even though this has really led themselves into a horrible, destructive war. So there's going to be secret diplomacy for personal goals, limitation of free trade to protect their home economy. Those are ideas that they feel are better for their own national interests. There is going to be some consideration for the idea of self-determination, that a national or ethnic group has the right to determine their own government and future. So for the Allies, particularly for France, it's useful to split up Austria-Hungary into smaller countries, to carve up the German Empire, and in general to satisfy France's grievances against Germany by fundamentally weakening Germany in size, in power, in might, and also their closest ally, Austria-Hungary. So Wilson really isn't able to dominate the conference and be able to implement these 14 points. And Great Britain really just wants to settle up accounts and to go home. They want out of this. Now, Germany and Austria-Hungary are naturally outraged with the treaty that they are forced to sign. And they are forced to sign because if they don't sign, the U.S. troops have not left yet. And so they will basically continue the war again. Germany and Austria simply can't do that. That would just annihilate them. But they're very upset this treaty looks nothing like the 14 points that Wilson sent to them saying, this is what I'd like to use in terms of a negotiation. And they're definitely right to be upset with this because there is, of course, the war guilt clause, which blames Germany, and, of course, the mandate system in the colonies. The fact that the colonies are now going to be managed by Britain, France, the other allies. And Germany rightfully points out that, well, you know, this idea of self-determination, the mandate system, why aren't you applying it to your own colonies? So there's going to be major grievances left after the war during the rebuilding efforts. And so we're going to be revisiting that again in Chapter 30. And so looking at how Europe recovers and then falls again helps introduce World War II. The next lecture we're going to be looking at is the rise of nationalism in Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia, and really how they're going to be coming to terms as well with the aftermath of World War I.